Hello everyone and welcome to the Hobbyguard. In today's video I will be responding to a few comments that I got on this channel regarding equality in hobbies and gender inclusion in hobbies and politics in hobbies or in fictional narratives, particularly in Warhammer. And I will be responding to specifically two comments that someone left. First, this person left a comment on they responded to a comment that I made. Sorry, in the background here, by the way, you'll be seeing my fan art of the story The Keys of Hell by John French, I believe, from the Horus Heresy, featuring the Iron Hands. But anyways, this person originally responded in a comment that I left in another video from Northern Exile. And after they left that comment a few days ago, then they came back yesterday or today, and they started commenting more in my one of my videos and just arguing with people. And I really appreciate that. That is something that I honestly do appreciate, and I have no problem with people arguing as long as it stays moderately civilized. I don't mind people arguing in my channel whatsoever. I actually appreciate it because, well, we need to have some of these discussions, right? We need to talk about some of these things, and it doesn't get better if we don't address these problems. I think that we need to talk about them. Why the hell is everything white now? Give me a sec here. Oh, that's why. It's probably easier if I'm not trying to paint with my eraser. Anyways, I'm such a bad artist. I don't know how I managed to do the things I do. So yeah, I really appreciate people starting discussions, again, so long as they stay civilized. As I always say, I can only learn from you, good or bad, whatever it is. But even if I disagree fundamentally with what you're saying, what you're talking about, what you're commenting, I will still fight for your right to comment it, right? So long as you're not being a nasty person and you're not being mean to other people and you're not commenting out of bad faith, please feel free to comment on this channel and argue as much as you'd like. Just stay civil, don't ruin other people's days. So yeah, let me first read you, because it's a couple of comments, and again, we will... I love this because it opens the possibility for me to talk about a thing that I hold dear to my heart, which is my hobbies in general, and also to address a few of the misconceptions that I think people have on these topics and that are very common in the past decade, I want to say, at the very least. So here, let me minimize my drawing scene. One sec. And I will read the first comment. It says, "Oh, please, you're just whining because people other than you get to be cool for a change. When you're the one on the top, equality looks like oppression, I guess." And, I won't get too fixated on this person in particular, because I don't know this person. They might just be rage baiting. I assume they're commenting out of in good faith, because again, they took the time to come to my channel and comment. But I don't want to pile on this person in particular. I do find that comment very sad, though, and I don't mean that in a mocking way, in a way like, boo-hoo, you're such a loser, that's sad. No, I actually mean deeply, I find that disheartening, right? Because when I was a kid, I was a person who, my hobbies were my refuge, but I never expected my hobbies to fix the world, They would be a little pocket of fiction where I would cradle myself, my little bunker of awesomeness, where I would cradle myself and find the inspiration to, first of all, get to know more about myself, sometimes through stories of other characters, sometimes through the challenges that come with trying to get better at any hobby, right? At painting, at drawing, whatever it is that you have for a hobby, at playing Warhammer or playing Dungeons and Dragons, whatever it is. You get challenged to... Let me change the music real quick. That was not the vibe I was going after. At some point, if you do it for long enough, you will get challenged, right? So if you're challenged, you're out of your comfort zone, you get to be better with yourself, even with things as nerdy as like playing D&D, for example. Have you ever tried to be a DM? It's extremely challenging and threatening. Even me at my 31 years old, when my friends convinced me to run a campaign, I am terrified to this day of running that campaign, right? Because I have to grow. I have to do some growth. So yeah, I always have my nerdy hobbies. And let me share something with you. I was heavily bullied at school when I was younger, and I don't know what bullying is nowadays. It's probably more cyberbullying, which it's obviously very tragic, and it presents a whole other range of issues and hurts people in completely different ways that I didn't quite have access to back in my day, because I am an onk, I am an old timer. But no, in my time it was like, no, people actually we would get into fights at school when we were 10, and some guy kicked me until like broke my arm with a kick by kicking me, and they threw chairs at me, and fights would get pretty vicious. Of course, I do come from a more violent country, but some of the things that happened were inexcusable. And at some point, I don't want to get too much into the things that I went through, because it might get my channel demonetized, but it's an entirely different topic. Let's just say my life was in danger more than once because of bullying, basically, right? It became very psychopathic. So all this to say, I am not oblivious to whatever challenges someone who might feel vulnerable in society might go through. Now, of course, if you have eyes, you can assume that I am a white male, and take that for what it is. I am a minority in my country. I am Mexican. I do have a lot of indigenous blood in me, a very big percentage of indigenous blood in me, of the Otomi tribe particularly. But that's neither here nor there. I don't think I should have to argue for any of that stuff. But some people nowadays will think, just going by this comment, because they say, like, when people other than you get to be cool, I assume they're talking about my gender. I assume that's what it's about. Well, I didn't used to be cool back in the day, okay? I was a very easily bullyable kid. I was a theater kid. I was on national TV. I had long hair my entire life in a country that was very, very obsessed with traditional masculinity, and like it's a very it used to be, at least, a very homophobic country, and long hair in men was traditionally associated with being a homosexual. So a whole range of issues. The bullying never ended, honestly, while I was young. Even after I learned to fight, it just meant for a while that the fighting would escalate and things would get very vicious. So all this to say, I know what it's like to find refuge in your hobbies and to feel excluded from society to an extent, and excluded from your group of friends. I don't know what it is like to be a woman in society, because, well, neither do I want to know what it's like to be one, because that's not the lot that I have to play in life. But I did not for 1 second assume or intended or hoped or expected my hobbies to fix my bullying. Like, I did not for 1 second expected the people who made the stuff that I was into. Like, for example, Star Wars was a huge deal for me. I never expected the inclusion of a Jedi Padawan that looked just like me. I guess there was one that looked a lot like me, Anakin Skywalker, that did absolutely nothing to change the way people treated me. In fact, some of my friends bullied me more. They're like, oh, that guy looks like that stupid kid from that stupid movie. I wouldn't call them friends, actually, but just classmates or whatever. So that does not actually fix anything. And I think that is very important for people to understand. And I never expected that to change anything at all. I had to go through those things myself. If you think that adding female custodies does anything to ease gender tensions. I want to acknowledge, first of all, because I am a man of the world. I have lived in 4 different countries, and I have met people from all sorts of cultures. I grew up with women. I have many female friends, and I've had many more throughout the years. I am a married man, and I would say that I have a pretty healthy relationship with the women in my life, or at least I try to. So I have a friend who moved to Canada, here where I live now, because she didn't like the societal expectations that her country would have for her as a woman, basically. And because here she felt a lot freer to express her sexuality and whatever, and she just said that it was something that she couldn't do in her country freely. And you know what? I understand that. I respect that. So, no, more power to you. And I understand different cultures have different, for example, my own culture, Mexico. I don't know what the hell it is now, but back in the day, it was a very sexist country. That came with some good things, like we were also very chivalrous. We would always open the door for a woman, stand up so that she can sit down on the train or on the bus or whatever. We were very chivalric. So in Mexico, in Spanish, the word for gentleman and a knight is the same word. Okay, so when I say chivalric, I mean it. We were very much like knights, but that changed over the years because the new generations, since they started getting accused of being sexist just for having chivalric values, they sort of develop like a trauma response to that, and they just see chivalry as basically simping and getting taken advantage of. But that's neither here nor there. My point is, I understand that different cultures will have different interactions between the genders, and there's also, of course, personal trauma. Some men have personal trauma with the opposite gender. Same thing goes for women. I just don't think that we should ever expect a fictional narrative to do anything for that, or at least to have the purpose of doing anything for that. I don't think that should be the driving purpose behind it. The driving purpose should only be for a book to tell a good story. For a game, like a war game, to be fun. And then we can get into the creative decisions of the people involved. Back in the day, back in the 70s or even in the 60s, if you told people about a game in outer space of nuns that had nuns that were extremely violent and they had flamethrowers and machine guns, people would have probably be taken aback. But by the time Warhammer came out, I'm sure some people would still be to this day taken aback, but for the most part, the Sisters of Battle, when they got included, they did pretty well. And a good amount of people, mainly men back in the day, sorry to tell you, thought, hey, that's pretty cool. It's also very dystopic, right? I just don't think that did much. Like, hell, yeah, if that helps some guy playing in his basement with Sisters of Battle, if that helps him be less sexist somehow, great. I just don't think that should have been their driving purpose. I think if that had been their driving force, the driving force behind the decision of Sisters of Battle to fight sexism, I think it would have been a much crappier faction. Now, why do I know? Because that's another comment here that this person made. I'll just read it now. Just give me a sec here. Let me pull it up. And I have to... There you go. This person, again, like I said earlier, they went on my channel and they started arguing with people. And they said, dude, why do you people think... What do you mean by you people, by the way? No, I'm just kidding. Why do you people think it's political to have women be able to be superhuman badasses in the setting? Well, I just have to kind of disregard that comment to an extent because it's a non-argument. No one thinks that is political. It's the way it was done. Let me explain. There is not a single story involving the Custodes that you could not already tell. There's not a single story that and I mentioned this, I think, in one of my videos, actually, that this person might have commented on. It serves no narrative purpose, because in order for a custodes to be a the custodian, for people to understand, has to be the perfect guardian, the perfect custodian, genetically modified to the extent that people don't even know how to make them. The emperor made them artistically by hand, each one of them their own masterpiece. They're not like in Mexico we say it's not enchiladas, like it's not an easy thing to make. They are the pinnacle of humanity's potential for war, basically, with the focus of a bodyguard, of a guardian, of a custodian, because for the pinnacle of humanity's potential for like outright open battlefield war are the Space Marines. Hence why they're made in much larger numbers than the custodes, right? But anyways, there should not be a single story that you can tell with a female custodes that you cannot tell with a male custodes. It serves no narrative purpose whatsoever, and that's why grown-ups who have been around long enough to understand how these things work, we know, okay, this is clearly pandering. We don't know to who. They might even have a good reason for it. Maybe they just want to expand their target audience. We don't know. What we're arguing is that it was a stupid decision. And it made no sense. It makes no sense in the lore. It makes no sense in many ways. But again, going to what I think is the main topic of this, the main issue with this topic, rather, is I don't think this whole thing about, let me just read again, because again, this is just so alien. I don't want to ridiculize this person, but it is so alien to the way that I think, okay? Oh, please, you're just whining because people other than you get to be cool for a change when you're the one on the top. Equality looks like oppression, I guess. I can't relate to that way of thinking whatsoever. I don't feel oppressed by this, but I also don't think that this is equality. The fact that in the stories that I like, now I have women who get abducted as children reluctantly. Well, at least back in the day, in the old Warhammer lore, the custodes used to be like sons of the defeated enemies of the emperor. Usually, I think it was like kings and so on. And obviously, now it's just says the sons of nobles. So actually, they're not reluctant. Actually, some people, I would think, make sense in the lore that some people, some kids even, would want to become custodes. But we have to understand, they basically get brainwashed, propagandized as children, and then they get physically taken apart at a very physical level, sort of like what you're seeing on the screen here, even though this is an Iron Hands. It's not subtle at all. And literally, for in order for Space Marines, for example, I don't know too much about custodes physiology, but for Space Marines to have the black carapace, they have to literally take their skin apart and just slice it off and install the black carapace armor underneath the skin. And not only does that add an extra layer of protection, but that also helps them connect interface with their armor and all the armor systems that they use. And anyways, in the specific case of the female of the custodes, going back to what I was saying, this chick gets taken as a very young girl and then gets put through some of the most inhuman training regimens and some of the most brutal psychological propaganda. Her body, her soul, and her mind get taken apart and put back together with the purpose of serving one man and serving and protecting one man, to the extent that her entire personality takes the backseat to the wishes of this one man who can actually, when he was still walking around, the emperor, he can possess her and wear her like a glove however she likes, whenever he likes and however he likes. I don't personally think that helps. I don't think that's equality. I don't know what to say. I don't think that helps gender relations in the world we live in. I just think it's very dystopic, very grimdark, just as grimdark as the Sisters of Battle in some way. Probably less classy, because the Sisters of Battle, the lore for why we have Sisters of Battle, extremely classy. Definitely way more grimdark than the Sisters of Silence, even though I love, again, the Sisters of Silence. I think I have this drawing here somewhere that I did in my other video of the Sisters of Silence. There, feast your eyes upon my fan art of the Sisters of Silence. This is very old, by the way, but very grimdark. As you can see, I emphasized their devotion to the Emperor and to the cause by just making her like a human that was completely torn apart by war and just put back together, right? So, yeah, again, I'm not opposed to the idea of superhuman female badasses in any way. I just don't have a mentality where I expect that to do anything for like the real world. See, people don't react well to these things. When you make a movie to educate people instead of to tell a good story and to help them on, like, that's not how art works. You don't do art to educate people, because that's called propaganda. I guess you can do art to teach. You can do art that has the purpose of education. Yes, you can do those things, but when you want to instill certain values against something, like into something that already exists, that people already have an attachment to, that has the opposite effect. I would argue that Rey Skywalker did nothing for the men who were into Star Wars to like women more. I have many women in my life. I have many female friends. I have a lot of women in my family. I am a married man, as I have said many times before, and I do my best to have healthy relationships with the opposite gender, and a movie has nothing to do with it. I just, at some point, sure, your hobbies can help you meet more people, but in the end, it's work that you have to do. You can't force feed people these sort of values. That's not how things work. That usually ends up having the opposite effect, and that's how you end up radicalizing people against your side of the argument. When you grab something that they used to like, or that they like, and you change it to accommodate your own personal ideals or whatever, that's how you lose people. That's how you get people turned against you, right? And again, I am not opposed to, hell, I have mentioned in this channel before, I have this female friend who had never painted Warhammer before, had never bought anything Warhammer before, and I got her into the hobby. I walked with her to the store. I gave her her first painting kit, or one of her first painting kits, for Christmas. That was like more than a year ago. This Christmas I gave her a new model. She's into Warhammer. She collects Skaven. She's happy. I'm happy. I don't care. As long as I get to talk with you about Warhammer, I don't care if you're a man or a woman or a horse. I don't care what you are. If I get you into my hobby, into something that I like, and then you say, well, it's not good enough for me, so I'm gonna change it, then yeah, I have an issue. Because just as when I was younger, I would see my sisters or female friends or whatever playing with their Barbies and their Cabbage Patches and dolls and whatever, and I wouldn't be like, no, this needs more male representation. There's no equality here. I want to be playing with my Clone Troopers and my Max Steels and my Action Man or whatever you guys had growing up. I had those because I'm not represented here. They will tell me like, no, that's the point. This is our time to play with each other. Go away. They would have kicked me out, right? Obviously so. My sisters, I would get so mad because they would grab my action figures and they would use them as the husbands of their Barbies. I'm like, no, that's a man bred for war, for battle. He should be out in the field fighting. And she's like, cry harder, dude. He's now Barbie's husband. What you gonna do about it? But anyways, I don't go around. Okay, I'm a man, and like all men, I have a fascination with fighting. I practice martial arts for almost my entire life. I have fights, and I've talked about them, like fights, amateur fighting, and so on, in various many disciplines. I love martial arts, and I think there's female fighters for sure. I've known many, and I've trained with many, and I respect them a whole bunch. But I think that universally speaking, hand combat is more attractive for men than women, and I just think it's just one of those things that it is what it is, and whatever. I won't get into that discussion. I don't think we as men should collectively get together and demand representation in all sorts of female media, like media with a female target audience, and start demanding, no, you know what, in your new rom-com, or your whatever romantic movie or your Barbie movie, if there is not at least 10 minutes of fight scenes, then we don't feel represented as men, and there is no equality. If in your entire movie or book or whatever, you don't have a good portion of the book or movie or whatever it is that has men fighting each other in hand-to-hand combat, then we're out. We do not feel represented. I think that would make for a lot of very bad movies. I would think it would make a lot of movies that I would not have watched probably more entertaining, but just to trash them. But I wouldn't watch them just because if it was not meant for me and you just shoehorn in a 10-minute fight scene, I will still likely not think that was a good movie if it's like a rom-com, because that's not what I'm into. Unless it's good. There's good rom-coms. I do have guilty pleasures out there. But that's not the point. My point is, you cannot give... You have the responsibility to sort whatever issue you have, whatever tension with the opposite gender, whether it's cultural, societal, religious, personal, psychological, based on your own personal experiences. I'm not invalidating any of that, but that's your responsibility to figure out. You can't expect the government or the writers of a series of books that you like or anyone to fix those problems for you. You have to go out there and basically become the sort of person who has healed that trauma, who has made progress along those issues. Let me give you another example. There's some racism where I'm from in my country, because there's racism in every country. And yes, Mexicans are extremely racist. And, you know, in a Mexican family, you have the person who has the whiter skin, for example, me, and then you have someone who has a bit darker skin, and then someone who has even darker skin, and then someone who has even darker skin, and then someone who looks like completely out of the African country. Good, because Mexico has such a rich variety of ethnicities and just phenotypes. I don't know how to call it. We just have people with all the colors, all the skin colors that you might imagine. We're the perfect, most inclusive society, and also extremely racist, right? But not necessarily in a bad way. It's just we call each other out on it all the time. We always call each other names. But my point is, I suffered a lot of racism growing up because I was singled out as, oh, you're the white kid. I wasn't the only white kid, but I was. My hair was blonde, right? And not a lot of people have blonde hair. I guess it turned darker at some point, but it was very bright. And got singled out for that. Got bullied for that, and all sorts of different things. That's how I remember it. I'm sure I was probably also extremely awkward and extremely silly and probably rubbed people the wrong way. I'm sure that happened. I probably did not know when to keep my mouth shut as well, but it just came out of their mouths as racist slurs and things like that, right? I went through that. That did not make me a more racist person, and I did not expect my hobbies or anything or the media representation. Let me tell you another story that is very personal to my heart. This just became story time once again. I didn't want to talk this long, but I used to be in national TV doing soap operas as a kid, and even when I was an adult, I did some of that as well. Now, I don't know if you know anything about soap operas, but back in the day, I was playing this character, and I have proofs, and I'm willing to provide it if I have to. I rather not at this point precisely, but this character was the white kid. He was literally like called the white kid, and in the show he was represented as being this rich white kid who was like the extremely racist to all the other kids and extremely pretentious and just a horrible, disgusting person. And in the end, he did have a character arc where he grew and he learned to value people based on different things than the color of their skin or whatever. But the point is, I would play that character when I was like 7 years old, and then go to school and people would treat me like I was still that character. Like, oh, you think you're better than us because you're rich? And I was like, I'm not rich. That's just a character. I live in a small apartment. Oh, so you think you are better than us? Because some of us don't even have an apartment. Like, oh. So there was just no way around it, right? I never expected Mexican media to represent it in any other way. The way I fixed my racial tensions with my friends and family was grow up, interact with them, learn about them, learn that they're just humans like all of us, and they have insecurities like all of us, and they act in ways that perhaps are not the best ways like all of us, but they also have a lot of values. And to the point that I don't know, I don't remember a time where I thought bad, something evil of someone just because they had a different skin color. I just actually don't remember a time like that, right? I have, since I came to Canada 2.5 years ago, since then I have made friends with, and by friends I mean like I have literally gone out with these people, like to have a drink or whatever, with Filipinos, Nigerians, Native Americans. I played D&D with Native Americans, and I work with them as well, and Indians, Ukrainians, women and men, a lesbian couple, Mexicans. Obviously, my wife is Mexican. I'm sure I'm forgetting some ethnicity because I've made friends with so many people from all different, like all sorts of places around the world, and none of us were like, oh yeah, I would have never talked to you unless I hadn't been introduced to female characters in my favorite faction. So yeah, honestly, this is a topic that I could go into for many more hours. I didn't even get to this person's second comment, but I fully intend to at some point. But I just don't want to make this video completely unwatchable because again, these are topics that I care about. So now I would love to know, what do you think? Do you think I'm wrong? And do you think like, yeah, no, the hobbies and stories should be there to propagandize or educate people or to fix gender equality? Or do you think, as I do, that no, that's your responsibility, you're the one who has to get out of your comfort zone and get out in the world, touch grass, work on your own personal values, strengthen your character, and take matters into your own hands and become the type of human that you would like to become an example to other people. I think that's how you actually fix inequality of all sorts. Like, okay, I'm a Mexican. You think I don't get to hear racial slurs? The other day some dude called me a wetbag. Do you think I don't meet people who have like negative predisposition towards Mexicans in this day and age, in this political climate? You think I don't? But I don't see it and whine that there are more Mexicans in hockey national TV. There's this Canadian national TV in their shows about hockey. I'm not like, oh, where are the Mexicans? That's why people don't accept me here, because I'm not represented in their hockey TV series. Does that make sense to you? Does that sound mature? Or do I go, no, my problem, they already have their predispositions. Best I can do is be the type of person that becomes a good example to them. Because I'm not stupid either. There's hundreds and thousands of horrible examples of my country out there. There's a reason I left. It's the brutal violence and corruption and incredible gratuitous bellicosity ingrained in my culture. You know, having friends kidnapped, tortured, and murdered is no joke, especially when it happens more than once. So, yeah, well, there's plenty of bad examples. All I can do is be a good example. And you know what? I've made racist people or people who had a negative predisposition towards Mexicans who adore me nowadays. I don't know if they adore me, but at least they have learned to value me as a laborer, as a friend, as a worker, whatever, through me just minding my own business and be the best person that I can, and again, become an example, because I think that's actually how you fix divisions of any sort. Gender division, racial division, religious division. So, I don't know, you want to fix division, make friends with people that think different than you. You know how many... again, I'm a kind of apolitical. You know how many conservative, hard-right, not alt-right, mind you, but hard-right conservative friends I have? And how many liberal friends, full-on liberal, full-on progressive, full-on left, extremist, let's go to the Pride Parade kind of liberal friends I have? Many. And that's how you actually fix divisions, I think. At least that's the last hope that the world has. Because if it's not that, just getting in the table, playing together, and respecting each other, then there's no hope. Then the other hope is just battle. So that's why I think hobbies are important. That's why I think Warhammer is important, because it's not really, it's something that should not be important. It's something that everyone should respect. I don't think it's important for girls who play with the dolls, or women who play with whatever women play. I don't think I should be represented in their little hobby space. I don't think that's necessary. And I know it's not a one-to-one comparison. It's just, I can think of anything as dumb as suggesting that introducing female custodies does anything to help gender division. But enough, I'm getting too heated up. I love talking about my hobbies. And this is something that I feel very passionate about. So now please let me know what you think in the comments down below. And with that, thank you for coming. Thank you for watching Ad Astra. And remember, there are no female custodies.